There's a pretty common understanding we all have that after your 30s, maybe your early 40s, you've reached the high water mark in your life. And we're in this long, graceful, slow decline as we age. We know that we're not as strong and as quick as we were when we were 25. We know that we don't have the energy and ambition that we had at that age. And we also look in the mirror and we see our bodies in slow decline, right? We see the wrinkles, we see the gray hair. And so we've just kind of accepted that as true. I think we equate our physiological peak to our actual peak. In this video, I'm going to make the case that we actually peak in our 50s, and the evidence is everywhere, and we should start behaving that way. I'm Elliot.
And I'm Megan, and we're taking the midlife leap into a better way of living on our terms.
Join us on our journey away from the paycheck and toward living with passion and purpose in our middle years. If you're watching this video, I'm going to guess that you're about my age, and you're wondering / hoping that many of your best years are still in front of you. And you're probably just looking forward to getting through the rest of your working years so that you can arrive at retirement and accomplish all these big things that you want to accomplish. So you're hopeful. The problem is in advertising, pop culture, and the media, we're really sold this message that prime time, your prime years of your life are really in your 20s and early 30s. I mean, that's when everything happens, right? You're strong and fit and sexy and you have unlimited opportunity and everything's in front of you. You're bold and brave, and big accomplishments all happen in this period. What they don't really tell you is what also happens in your 20s and 30s is anxiety that you feel about your future that kind of robs you of enjoyment of the present and all the avoidable and dumb mistakes you're going to make during this time. And then also the relationship struggles that you've got to work yourself through, and that takes a lot of time. And then there's also the meaningless, trendy things that you waste your time chasing. I think these are all features of being 25 or 30 as well. It's not just all the high points, it's all the stuff that you also work through in your life and you get better, and there is a peak to those types of learnings as well. I also believe that we peak much earlier. But now that I'm into my early 50s, I want to challenge that idea a little bit. Not just to make myself feel good about my age, but it's actually not been my experience. My experience has been that life is probably the best it's been right now. And look, I know everybody's different, and there are plenty of 50-year-olds that look like hell warmed over because they haven't taken care of themselves. And those people probably are in decline, right? So there is a variability to this as well. But I can only speak to personal experience and the experiences that I see in my friends around me. So just why am I making this video? Well, obviously you're on a channel called the Midlife Leap. And in the Midlife Leap, we try to convince you that these are your best years and that you shouldn't waste time doing things that you don't want to do, in a career you don't want to be in a routine that no longer serves you.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. If you want to see more videos like this, hit like, make sure you subscribe, and we'll keep it going.
I read an article about a guy that was 53 years old and had just set the longest continuous running record of 560 kilometers. He ran across California nonstop at age 53. And it made me think, well, gosh, if in the physical domain we're capable of doing stuff like that in our 50s, well, what are the other domains in life that matter? When you measure how good your life is, what do you naturally think in terms of? So here's the 4 that I've come up with. We can debate them, of course. Please leave something in the comments if you think I missed it. I'd really love to hear that. Number 1, physical ability. And we're going to put health into that too. I think we've already talked about that. Everybody kind of knows what that means. We'll drill into that in a second. Number 2, mental acuity. So this includes wisdom and experience and decision-making skills and all of that. That's also a big component of life. Number 3 is maybe a little bit obscure, but I'm going to say artistry and creativity. So when we talk about the big accomplishments in life, often these are in the creative plane. So let's count that as one of the main areas that we can score. And then number 4 is what I'll just kind of loosely group together as soft skills. This is emotional intelligence. This is your skill in relationships. These are things that are hard to quantify, but we do know that they get better as you get older, and then they probably fall off a bit. So these are all things that I think we can use as to where we have peaked. Okay, let's talk about the physical domain. So this is your overall athletic ability, your endurance, your overall health. When do you peak here? So let me just talk about a couple of examples here. One of them is Yuichiro Miura, who summited Mount Everest at the ripe old age of 80, becoming the oldest person to ever do that. It was actually that person's 3rd attempt. They did it when they were 70 and 75 as well. Okay, and then I mentioned in the opener a gentleman named Dean Karnazes. He was 53. He ran continuously for more than 80 hours for 560 kilometers across California. 53-year-old man, 80-year-old man. So, of course, you're going to think, well, these are freaks of nature. This doesn't really say anything about overall average age. And you're probably right. There's always a few outliers, right? So then when I spent a little time with my friend, Microsoft Copilot, I realized that if you took all the major, let's say, marathons in the world, so the top echelon of marathons would be Boston and New York and London and Tokyo. Okay, the largest age group is 40 to 44. I think what we're seeing is that in endurance events, it's not just about physical ability, is it? It's not just about how much can you power lift. I think endurance has a lot to do with this as well, which tends to skew old. I think if you look at some of the really epic feats that have happened in the world, climbing Mount Everest is one, but crossing Antarctica is another one, or completing an Ironman triathlon, these all skew older. So the best athletes in this realm are typically in their 40s, some into their 50s. And I think this is because it's the place where your physical capabilities intersects with things like willpower and stamina and adaptability and courage. So it's not actually that clear that physically by 50 you are in decline. I think you're at the point where those two lines cross. Let's move on to mental acuity. So in here we have all the knowledge that you've acquired through your life, your sharpness and focus, your decision-making skills, your ability to understand nuanced, complicated issues. These things require experience, and they just require time on the earth. And so I think mental acuity is something that rises throughout the years. Your ability to understand complicated things really goes up through your career. And as we've seen, what's the average age of a CEO or a director or a C-suite person? Generally, these are people deep into their career that have the knowledge, that have the experience, and are able to learn and adapt and make good decisions. Artistry and creativity. So let's talk about this domain for a bit. So when do you think you're at the top of your game creatively in life? Well, initially I would have thought all the great artists, all the biggest artists reach their peak in their 30s. All the best actors and actresses kind of reach that same sort of milestone where they are very presentable on screen, they're very marketable and beautiful, but the thing is their artistry is really concealed by that fact, isn't it? If you start to look a little bit deeper at some of the greatest minds of our time or of any time, you're going to realize that their best work was generally done 50 and later. One of the greatest artists ever known was Leonardo da Vinci. He painted Mona Lisa when he was in his 50s. Beethoven's greatest symphonies were all done, or generally done, in his 50s. It goes on and on. Leonard Cohen, Johnny Cash, their greatest works were done at the point where they'd had a life of lived experiences and a huge palette of emotional, baggage, you might say, to be able to draw from to create art. So I think creatively, you really get better deep into your life. Sure, there's going to be a tail off at the end when maybe when your physical skills get in the way, or maybe it's even just motivation that gets in the way. But what we've seen is that great art happens late. Soft skills. Let's talk about that whole domain that's kind of a catch-all for everything and what it means to have a great life. So inside soft skills, we'd have things like your ability to build and maintain good relationships, your emotional intelligence. These things obviously get better as you get older, right? Your emotional intelligence is you're knowing how to read a situation, you're knowing when to react, when not to react, and just how to respond to people and events and things around you in a rational or unemotional way that serves you the best. The real great minds in this space generally are the ones that have been on the planet for a long time and have seen everything. Maybe there's fewer today than we would like there to be, but they are still there. And there's a reason that we look to age to kind of give us that long perspective on things that are happening in the now. That's something that improves as you get older. Another soft skill might be your ability to grasp and understand things that are new in a world that's changing around you. Perhaps it's technology. And I think obviously we all know that as you get older, it gets harder to hold on to what's new or current. You certainly don't lose that handle in your 20s or in your 30s. So when we step back and we look at all four of these domains of your life, I guess you can do a little self-assessment and decide, where am I? All I'm trying to share with you is that this idea that because you can't climb a flight of stairs as fast as you could, or you can't, like I said, run a 100-meter dash as fast as you could, that somehow you are in decline. So now when you look at it and you think, if those are the four domains, what chance does a 28-year-old have to be the best that they're ever going to be in all those domains? What's the chance that they're going to have that emotional intelligence that they're going to have in their 50s after they've been married, maybe been divorced, raised kids, had heartbreak and loss? There is no way that you could say that you are the best at that early age. So when I look around, just going back to how I opened, I'm 52. I actually feel like I might be at the best point in my life because all those things seem to be coming together. Anyway, I'm really curious to hear what your comments are and whether you agree with that or whether you think I'm out to lunch. So let's talk about that. Let's get a conversation going. Thanks for watching.